What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. This time, I want to talk to you guys about that rather interesting moment that we had at the end of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 7, where we had Jura obviously saying, let's go hunt Naruto Uzumaki. But one thing that stood out on that page is that when you get past the whole shock and awe of Jura saying, let's go pay Naruto a visit, and Jura sitting there reading all those books, you have a moment where Ikimoto draws Hidari's face partially concealed, and he's got the smallest panel on the entire 2-page spread. And it's something I think was intentional, because when you read the first pages together, it can be easy to gloss over Hidari because so much of those 2 pages was dedicated to Jura, and you have the shock factor of Jura declaring he was going to go after Naruto now. But in today's video, I want to zero in on Hidari and open up a discussion on why we need to discuss the potential zinger waiting for us when this Shinju invasion of Konoha takes place, and why Hidari should be considered a potential threat, but not to Konoha, but instead the other Shinju as well, and why that threat is going to be a byproduct of Sarada versus Hidari. So as a reminder, like we do with all of these videos, we'll look at the reason why this entire conversation needs to be had by us as a community. We'll also look at the narrative impact, if this does have some weight to it, or whether or not it should be discarded, and we'll discuss whether or not this needs to be something that happens. Just throwing that out there as a recap, just because I know there's a tendency by some to see the title and thumbnail and immediately say, oh my god, he's saying that Mitsuki's Sage Mode is weaker in Boruto now than it was in Boruto Naruto Next Generations, where I never said that in the video. Don't just go by the title and thumbnail. So Sarada and Hidari are 2 characters I think we all can agree, for the most part, they seem as if they're destined to collide at some point in the story. There have been signs pointing to this showdown for a while now, from the moment the narrative set us up with Sarada being one of the first people to realize that the claw grimes that bite people wasn't a death sentence, but rather they got turned into a tree but they were still alive, which led to a bunch of you saying that Sasuke was definitely a tree now, which shouts out to that patron who predicted that. And after that flashback occurred in chapter 5, we were shown a rather troublesome image. Jura was pointing the other Shinju in the direction of who they need to be targeting to consume, and Jura led Hidari to the bright idea that he needed to search his feelings, and that ultimately led him to Sarada being his target, because something inside of him was pulling him towards Sarada, something that he couldn't explain. In the time after that, we see Boruto breaking the news to Sarada about what happened to her father, but based off what we've seen, he didn't tell her about Hidari, which makes that a rather interesting moment when these two eventually meet because of Sarada's reaction to seeing a Shinju version of her father. That in turn led to the end of the last chapter, where Hidari is shown silent and wordless during a time where Jura is making imminent plans to go into Konoha. You guys, you know my stance on this. I am not a huge fan of the Shinju just rolling up into Konoha looking for the smoke right away, but I also understand that narratively we're at a point now that it needs to happen. And to get personal, I learned this several years ago when the pain arc was occurring, to not jump the gun because the story moved with a plot twist I wasn't fond of, or didn't think that at the time reading the manga weekly that it was the right decision. I disliked the idea of Pain rolling up into Konoha, since that was the face of the Akatsuki for so long, even though we knew that it was Tobi/Obito who was really pulling the strings. At the time, I thought, man, this pacing, it's just blitzing fast right now. We've barely had time to breathe and recover from Jiraiya dying, and then you had the Itachi versus Sasuke battle, you had the Itachi plot twist, you had the twist of Sasuke agreeing to help the Akatsuki, and now Pain is coming into Konoha looking for Naruto. It just felt like it was back to back. I couldn't breathe. Yet going through that is what led to me developing the mindset I had during the Cold Assault arc, where I sat back and I said, let the story cook, because there's faster pacing coming after we get out the setup phase. Following that Pain invasion arc, that fallout from the Akatsuki attack on Konoha, it literally fuels the fires for the next 20 volumes of Naruto to set up the closing of the Naruto manga. While I'm a bit worried about a potential Sarada versus Jura battle this early on, I'm keeping an open mind about it. I trust what Kishimoto and Ikimoto can write here, and I do want to check the pulse of you guys as fans on the series as well, because I know that a lot of you guys, you either respectfully agree or you respectfully disagree. All sides are welcome here as long as you keep it classy. So I do want to check in with you guys on that, because comments you guys are making in the comment section, things like the retention, etc., that tells me the direction you guys want the channel to go into. Hence why we've done a lot more Boruto videos, because you guys have higher retention for that. And I think you guys are very checked in on Boruto. So I am curious to see how you guys feel about Sarada versus Hidari. Now, I do think we all can agree that, like, from a narrative perspective, in terms of the impact of this, should Sarada versus Hidari take place, it is something that is much welcome. You get the chance to see Sarada fight at full power. It's something fans have been clamoring for a while. Kishimoto and Ikimoto are likely saving her Mangekyo Sharingan powers to be revealed during that battle with Hidari. And I know that's something that a lot of people have been impatient about. Where's Sarada's Mangekyo powers? That has the biggest payoff should they go that route with those types of scenarios, because Sarada showed us as the audience she had that power when she was begging for her father to save Boruto's life. Sasuke himself, some of his last thoughts before he got turned into a tree were Sarada and his parental urge to entrust Boruto with Sarada's well-being. It makes sense to have Sarada's first battle using her Mangekyo Sharingan be against Sasuke's Shinju clone Hidari. It poetically brings everything back to a full circle. The same way if, say, WWE had Cody Rhodes win the WWE Championship in Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania is a bigger, shiny stage, but for the purposes of the story, doing it at an event at Madison Square Garden, that's the biggest payoff. Getting back to Boruto though, while there was some disappointment that she didn't use her Mangekyo against the claw grimes that Code took into the village, I stand by the fact it didn't make a lot of sense for her to use the Mangekyo there. It would have been a waste. It would have been a cheap pop in order to get a sugar high, when in reality, that's not the best place for it to occur. It would have said more about how much stronger she did not get during that 3 years of training if she needed to use the Mangekyo on some NPCs that people like Chocho and Shikadai were able to combat. It would be like if, say, Vegeta had to use Super Saiyan on an enemy that Goku was shown beating in base without even trying. That speaks volumes to how weak Vegeta is even as a Super Saiyan compared to Goku than it does to how strong Vegeta is. The same thing applies here. You have to be very careful with this. We saw Boruto bodying those claw grimes with no issues, and the most we saw Sarada do was use a couple of ninjutsu against them, and she didn't appear to be getting pushed to her limit. We saw Boruto battle against Hidari in a fight, and again, while I don't think we saw Boruto at full base power, I do think we saw Boruto use a considerable amount of effort during that battle, because the fact that they mix it up and you need to use a Rasengan not for offensive purposes but defensively, I think that's the story telling us that Hidari and the other Shinju are stronger than we might think, potentially stronger than Code, or at the very least somewhat relative to Code in some cases. That means that they could be slightly stronger or they could be slightly weaker, but we have benchmarks now that you can use. Boruto mixing it up with all these different characters was done for that reason, because now we can start scaling them according to how well other characters do against said people that Boruto was fighting with varying degrees of difficulty. Having Sarada versus Hidari narratively, it does a lot for the story for a few reasons, I feel. It gives us a proper view into how much stronger she's gotten, and we see how close that Mangekyo Sharingan amp gives her to base Boruto, who fought against Hidari. It really comes down to how much has Sarada's base improved during that time, which I've always felt was going to be the key ever since she and Mitsuki first said that they had the goals to become stronger to fight against Otsutsuki. I said it came down to how strong was their base, and a lot of people make the mistake that casual Dragon Ball fans will make, which is they see a Super Saiyan and they immediately associate that power level of whatever Super Saiyan to what Goku was when he fought on Namek. Or to use a Naruto example, they'll see Sage Mode and associate it with Naruto's power level when he fought against Pain. Hence, you got a lot of people that say, oh, Hokage Naruto without Kurama, he's technically only as strong as Sage Mode Naruto who fought Pain, which that's absolute BS. Sage Mode and Mangekyo, they work the same way in terms of how the power increases work. Whether or not you want to say it's a multiplier or it's addition, that's going to be up to you. However, here's the thing, the stronger the base, the more boosts that those forms are getting. Classic example being something I said years ago, which was how heavy Sasuke, who had Orochimaru's curse mark in his chakra, was stronger than Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke, who joined the Akatsuki and fought Killer Bee. However, due to what Tobirama told us about how the Sharingan works, the stronger the emotions are, in particular hatred, they undergo a change, and the stronger the Sharingan and the chakra and the Akro powers get, which is what we saw in the 5 Kage Summit just a few volumes later, where that same Sasuke was overcome with hatred and his chakra was now being placed above where it was when he still had Orochimaru's curse mark, which that's really notable given that the curse mark that Sasuke had comes with a confirmed 10 times multiplier over your base, which means that Sasuke's extra chakra, it went above what he would have had with the curse mark. Sasuke didn't undergo any special training in between losing Orochimaru's curse mark and the time when he ended up challenging the 5 Kage. The only thing that changed is that his emotions went into overdrive and his hatred was at an all-time high, which means his power, as Tobirama stated, is the case with Uchiha more than once in the manga, once when talking to Hashirama, warning him to not make Madara Hokage, saying that the deeper the hatred through Uchiha feel, the stronger their chakra and Sharingan and ocular powers get. And multiple times as an Edo Tensei in the war, he says something similar. It's the same with Sage Mode. The Sage Mode shadow clone that Naruto used to fight the Third Raikage during the 4th Ninja War, that Sage Mode shadow clone is stronger than the Sage Mode Naruto who fought against 6 Paths of Pain. We can go on with more examples, but I think the big thing here is that we're seeing signs that Sarada and Mitsuki, they've leveled their base power levels up, and by extension, their trump cards, the Mangekyo and Sage Mode respectively, they're now stronger, strong enough to fight Otsutsuki, but not strong enough to fight evenly with Boruto, which should have been expected. Just as there are tiers to Kage level, where someone like Danzo is Kage level, and someone like Byakugo Seal Tsunade is also Kage level, there's a wide gap in power between the two. It's not even close. There's a solid 18 versions of characters between that Tsunade and Danzo. There's a wide gap in power when it comes to this. It's the same when it comes to Otsutsuki. There are levels to it and there are tiers to that bracket. Hidari's showing some of that hesitation in questioning Jura, and Hidari's face not being shown here in this chapter. I do think this is going to be something that comes up in that Sarada versus Hidari showdown that feels inevitable. You guys know my stance on this. Boruto's manga has continued that whole concept that memories can be transmitted through chakra, something that goes all the way back to Naruto's manga, and it's taken a step further by saying that genetics also contain memories. I don't think we can rule out Hidari having Sasuke's memories, having memories of Sarada and it playing a role in their battle, and potentially Hidari turning on the other Shinju. I don't think we can go the full route of Hidari being struck down by Sarada, but it's not something I'm personally opposed to because of what it would mean for her power-wise. Just as Mitsuki not being one-shot by Boruto did a lot for his character by extension, which you can see why I say that by clicking this link on the screen here, discussing is Mitsuki's Sage Mode weaker now.